Hey everybody, this is King Kong 9200, and today we will be talking about how King Kong inspired Godzilla, how Godzilla inspired King Kong, although in much more different ways over time, and how both characters can further evolve as time progresses. Now, before I get into it, I just wanted to mention that when it comes to a topic like how King Kong inspired Godzilla, one of the reasons that I'm making this video is because I do want to raise awareness to this topic, because there is a misconception within the fandom where many people feel like Kong was a very loose inspiration to Godzilla and it was mainly Rhedosaurus who inspired Godzilla, or there are people who just outright believe Kong had nothing to do with the creation of Godzilla. So I would like to kind of discuss how King Kong directly inspired Godzilla as a character, at least a lot more than many people may think. And regarding the latter part of this video, I won't be getting too into depth with the topic of how both characters can further evolve, and the reason for this is because by now I have multiple videos on the channel that go into a lot more detail regarding this topic, which are all going to be linked down below. That being said, I'll still loosely touch upon these ideas so I don't sound like a broken record for frequent viewers of the channel, and you guys still get what you want. I hope you all enjoy, and let's get right into it. Let's begin with talking about how King Kong directly inspired Godzilla as a character, as well as how he helped inspire things like the art of suitmation and other famous characters like Mothra. Before we really get into it, I want to give a major shout out to a user on Toho Kingdom by the name of the Octopus, because they provided a lot of this information to me with sources and loads of details, so a very big thank you to this person. Again, sources for each point will be provided on the screen, and I promise you these sources aren't just trust me bro, okay? Trust me, bro. Now, there are many accounts of people who've worked on the original Godzilla that have outright stated that King Kong directly inspired the production and the creators. One of these many people is Teruyushi Nakano, who is a famous Japanese special effects director who'd worked on many of the early Godzilla movies. According to Teruyushi Nakano, before Godzilla in early 1954, Tomoyuki Tanaka and Eiji Tsuburaya wanted to make a King Kong film for Toho because he was quote-unquote world famous. He didn't say why the project was scrapped, but it most likely had to do with obtaining the rights to the character. As time has shown throughout history, King Kong's rights are such a mess that it prevented him from being in, honestly, a lot of incredible projects, which seems to have stunned his growth as a character. And I'll touch on this point later on in the video, but Tanaka did indeed want to make a King Kong movie before his Godzilla movie. Tomoyuki Tanaka is one of the co-creators of Godzilla. After Tanaka decided to make his own giant monster movie, which would be Godzilla, he was trying to sell the movie to his boss at Toho, Iwao Mori. During Tanaka's film pitch, he stated, "I want to make a movie where a giant monster attacks Tokyo the same way King Kong attacked New York." According to Shigeru Kayama, the person hired to write the story for the film, Tanaka told him that the monster was going to be a sea monster that was a cross between a gorilla and a whale. As all G fans know, the name Gojira is derived from a cross between the words gorilla and whale in Japanese. But at one point during the early stages of production, that is literally how the monster was going to look. So the fact that a monster was going to resemble a giant ape should tell you something about King Kong's influence upon the character. Ishiro Honda, famously known as the director of the original Godzilla film, said that King Kong was his favorite Hollywood film, as well as War of the Worlds later on, and that he watched King Kong for reference to get a feel for how to make a giant monster picture since, quote, "a film like that would have never been made in Japan before." Many fans also know Ishiro Honda as the director of movies like the original Mothra film in 1961, and Honda has stated that King Kong was a big influence for Mothra. When asked in an interview if King Kong inspired Mothra, he said, quote, "From the early planning stages with Mr. Tsuburaya, before the screenplay was written, the setting was an adventure set on a South Sea island, where a mysterious giant creature is worshipped as a god. There's also a showman and beauty, in this case little beauties, causes a city to be rampaged. So yes, this is a Japanese version of King Kong. However, I wanted our final act to have a happy ending, and not like the denouement of Kong, which ended in tragedy." So not only did King Kong inspire the director of Godzilla, Ishiro Honda, but it also inspired him regarding how to shoot Godzilla in 1954, as well as the creation of Mothra as a character and the structure of her film. Eiji Tsuburaya, who's widely known as the father of tokusatsu due to his pioneering of tokusatsu effects and suitmation, has said numerous times that King Kong changed his life and made him not only interested in, quote, special photographic techniques, quote, but made him want to make a King Kong type film for Toho. He even came up with a story treatment about a giant octopus attacking ships in the Indian Ocean. This is what brought him to Toho in the first place. Now, after the proposed King Kong movie with Tanaka fell through, he would then work with Tanaka on Godzilla instead. To quote, "The change in my life came when I first saw King Kong. That inspired me." So the man who created Suitmation and produced the Ultraman series was inspired to get into film by King Kong, further speaking to his influence on Godzilla and the kaiju genre as a whole. Tsuburaya also said, "When I worked for Nikatsu Studios, King Kong came to Kyoto and I never forgot that movie. I thought to myself, I will someday make a monster movie like that." He also said, "But my movie company has produced a very interesting script that combined King Kong and Godzilla, so I couldn't help working on this instead of my other fantasy films. The script is special to me. It makes me emotional because it was King Kong that got me interested in the world of special photographic techniques when I saw it in 1933. And this was after Toho got the rights to use the character." According to Sadamasa Arikawa, Iji was so excited that he was telling everyone on the crew that King Kong is better than Godzilla. In 1996, Iji Tsuburaya's family worked with a publishing company to put out a book about Iji's life and career called Iji Tsuburaya, the film director who made Ultraman. Now this was mainly done in a manga-type illustration, but there's a section dedicated to Iji first seeing King Kong in theaters and just how it changed his life. He's shown studying Willis O'Brien's film and all the techniques that went into bringing the ape to life, and so Iji decided to pursue a career in special effects, hoping one day to make his own giant monster movie. Haru Nakajima, the man who portrayed Godzilla painstakingly through the notoriously heavy and suffocating suit, said that the cast and crew sat around and watched a screening of King Kong on the Toho lot before production began on Gojira. This served as inspiration as to how they would go about making the film. The way they watched this movie was thanks to a print that Iji Tsuburaya privately owned. Nakajima said that he was fascinated by the film and he began to study the structure and the way a monster should move. He even went to the zoo and studied the movement of gorillas before he portrayed Godzilla. Now, I also want to mention that King Kong was actually Japan's first giant monster, as there were famously 2 films in the 1930s that are now lost thanks to the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but had actually portrayed King Kong as a monster. These films are called Wasei Kingu Kongu in 1933 and King Kong Appears in Edo in 1938. Now, King Kong Appears in Edo actually showed Kong, who can seemingly change his size on the poster, but it's still shown that King Kong appeared in a Japanese production for a monster film nearly 20 years before Godzilla did. The man who portrayed this version of King Kong, bear with me on this pronunciation, but I think it's Ryunosuke Kabayama, who, funnily enough, helped in creating the suit for Godzilla in 1954, had stated in a 1988 interview, "The first model making to be counted as special art direction in Japanese cinema was a giant gorilla, which I did for the movie, The King Kong that appeared in Edo 50 years ago. It was also the first movie to feature certain kinds of special effects." So this statement seems to clarify that Kong was definitely a giant in this movie, and it also seems to show that this is considered to be the first real use of suitmation, or these different kinds of special effects that would later be pioneered with tokusatsu films like Godzilla. So as you guys can see, we have the creators of Godzilla's character, the person who pioneered in suitmation and tokusatsu effects, plus the creator of the Mothra film, one of the creators of the original Godzilla suit, the actor who portrayed Godzilla, the writer of Godzilla, and the director of Godzilla, all on record of stating that King Kong served as direct inspiration for Godzilla as a character and as a film in many different regards. And it's easy to see that King Kong's influence as both a film and as a character simply were heavily on Godzilla's franchise, the original Godzilla film, and many different aspects in the mythos we still see to this day. You look at aspects like Godzilla in the Monsterverse having his own lair and being worshipped by humans, and it all screams King Kong. And once again, I want to give a major shout out to the Octopus over on Toho Kingdom for helping me out with a lot of this information and sources on these topics. Now let's get into how Godzilla inspired King Kong. Now this section isn't going to be as detailed since a lot of this information is mainly off the top of my head and observations that can be picked from Kong's own movies, but one of the main ways I see Godzilla inspiring King Kong's growth stems from Kong straying away from his tragic story. Again, because of how much of a mess Kong's rights are and how much they have been throughout history, Kong's never really had time to shine in his own movies, then evolve the character past his roots. As we saw in 1962, King Kong had been reinvented as a legitimate kaiju, not only rivaling Godzilla in power and size, but also getting the edge on him a couple times as Godzilla had Kong. So with respect to the monster that inspired him, Godzilla had also inspired Kong to flourish as a giant monster, with potential for all new original stories that can be told now that he is a giant monster with such tremendous power and durability. And as we look at the cancelled films Kong was set to be in, such as the lost film titled King Kong vs. Godzilla 2 Continuation, talks of Kong reappearing in the Showa era like in Destroy All Monsters, as well as talks of him reappearing in both the Heisei and Millennium eras, it's very evident that Kong's rights are just such a huge mess that none of these kinds of stories ever came to fruition. We never truly got these new Kong stories, which could have helped further grow him or reinvent him as a monster character. And it wasn't just Toho. I mean, America was no stranger to this problem. There have been many planned sequels or reboots or reinventions of King Kong that had also never seen the light of day thanks to Kong's rights being such a mess. So as a result, we've been stuck with very few Kong movies that are just retellings of the original or even less new films that take the character in a new direction. Godzilla would have served as one of those main roles in trying to further Kong's career both as a monster and as a film franchise. On a more personal note, as both a King Kong and Godzilla fan, I can see the potential in Kong's character if he were to move past his roots like he has been recently, thank God. Now there's a lot of room for new stories and new ideas. A lot of this would be thanks to Godzilla, because if you have Kong in the Godzilla franchise, yet also shown respectfully as an equal face of the series, it would further elevate both characters in both story and entertainment value. Now, one of the reasons I really wanted to see King Kong rival Godzilla in areas like power and strength is because I think that kind of dynamic makes for a very interesting and entertaining fight. If you're a frequent viewer of the channel, you might just want to straight up skip this section, but let's say hypothetically you made Kong very durable. I'm talking about an incredibly thick hide, and you combine that with his monstrous, proportionate to that of an ape on steroid strength, and you pair this kaiju up against Godzilla. That would be a much more entertaining fight than a Kong who can simply get one-tapped by Godzilla or other monsters like Mechagodzilla or the Warbats. I mean, if you had Godzilla use his atomic breath on Kong, only for it to be a situation like 1962 where Kong just outright eats the atomic breath for breakfast, that would elevate the fight scene and tension, as now Godzilla realizes he needs to get up close in order to win this fight. Kong can not only tank the breath, but he can outrun it, and it puts Godzilla at a disadvantage since it takes him time to charge his attack, and it leaves him vulnerable to other attacks. And I'm not saying this just to sound biased, I'm saying this because I want to explain why I think that would be a much more entertaining kind of fight as opposed to Kong, who again can just get one-tapped. With respect to King Kong as a monster, we now have a much more fair and even fight that's a lot more tense and entertaining than what we got in the actual film. Kong is being treated respectfully, Godzilla is shown as an intelligent badass, and we would be getting a fight with a shifting power dynamic that is brutal and thrilling. And that's what I feel like GVK should have been like. To be honest, same with King of the Monsters. I won't go on about the Godzilla plot armor issue like I do in my recent videos, but the whole reason I bring this up is because you can see the kind of effect Kong has had on Godzilla as a character, and I feel that in order to pay tribute to that, you would need to have Kong be shown as a very tough opponent for Godzilla who can take him the distance. He can lose, that's fine, but as long as he's shown in a respectful way and we get entertaining fight scenes with shifting power dynamics, that I'm all for. And honestly, to me, personally, I say this should go for a lot of MonsterVerse fight scenes, including what I felt should have gone down between Godzilla and Ghidorah, and Godzilla with Mechagodzilla. One-sided beatdowns definitely aren't it. But yes, I believe Godzilla has helped King Kong in being that driving force to try and move Kong past his roots as a character. And with the numerous lost films initially pairing Kong against Godzilla in all three Goji eras, you can see that Toho really did want to help evolve Kong as a character, and that is an aspect I've come to greatly appreciate from the studio. And now we'll be discussing how each character can further evolve down the line. As I said in the beginning of this video, I have other videos I've already done on the channel where I've discussed exactly how to handle Kong and Godzilla's characters in the MonsterVerse. I've talked about what the MonsterVerse has been doing right so far, so links for those videos will be in the description down below. I'll touch on some of the topics lightly, but one of the biggest ways these characters can be improved is by having much better writing in regards to both the humans and the monsters. If these films took much more time focusing on writing more compelling human characters, it would make for even more compelling monster action. Those two very much go hand in hand. And much like with the human characters, I think if you took the time to write very intriguing monster characters, that would also help break the mold of the typical monster B-movie. And there's a lot of potential in the MonsterVerse for these movies to go from good to great, and I think settling for less and not asking for more would actually hurt these characters and how long they last as movies. But the more compelling your stories are, then the more these films will be asked for by fans, and thus you'll be able to create more and more movies as opposed to only releasing a few then going on hiatus for a decade. Godzilla and King Kong have both had this problem, with Kong's problem being far worse due to his rights issues we mentioned before. So giving us far better written human characters and monster action would drastically help these movies become more than just basic B-movies with no lasting power. But going further into that idea and writing much more thrilling and encapsulating stories would just bring these movies to a whole new level. It's very similar to how Christopher Nolan helped bring Batman from a joke to giving us one of the most incredibly cherished films of all time. As long as creators don't go, oh, who cares, it's a monster movie, nothing needs to make sense. And instead, we get writers who genuinely give a shit and directors who genuinely want to make something captivating and filled with meaning. That is the only way these movies can truly last and be something special filled with integrity and respect, much like the original films were. I'd personally like to see some genre jumping, as we can have these movies lean into some more unexplored areas, such as more horrifying elements or more serious elements or even much more romantic or comedic elements. But at the end of the day, I think both of these monsters have very bright futures if they are kept in the right hands, and I think as fans, asking for better is what will help these characters further evolve. The beauty is that now they're evolving alongside each other within the same series, which is exactly where they should have been decades ago. King Kong inspired Godzilla directly in many ways, so I hope that we can kind of avoid that whole misconception from now on. And Godzilla inspired Kong in many ways as well, which is also very admirable. And now the two can further inspire each other while also sharing the screen. I hope you guys all enjoyed. I want to give a major shout out once again to the Octopus on Toho Kingdom for helping me out with the information regarding how King Kong inspired Godzilla. He didn't want any credit, but I can't help it. Once again, I hope you all enjoyed. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. It's always a pleasure to read. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and if you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace and love as always. Bye bye.